Hey everyone,
Hey.
It's Joelle and David here from Strong Mind Soft Heart, and today we are going to be doing a Q&A with each other about why we want a large family. Hello, if you are new here, as I said before, my name is Joelle, this is my husband David, this is our YouTube channel, Strong Mind Soft Heart. Please feel free to subscribe. We do a wide range of videos on this channel. I'm not going to get into it all because I want to get straight into the questions today.
The meat of it.
The meat of it. So we haven't done a video for quite a while.
Yep.
That is because we've been quite preoccupied. We are currently, we are currently 37 weeks pregnant, so baby's coming in the next couple of weeks hopefully. So just trying to get everything organized, and it's excited. So that is baby number 5 on the way. So today we want to talk about a topic that may be a little controversial to some, but we're quite excited to talk about it, and that is why we want a large family.
Yep. Bring the kids on.
So before we do anything else, I just want to put a disclaimer out there that this is in no way intended to offend anybody or hurt anybody's feelings. We understand that everybody's definition of large family is different.
Absolutely.
For us, this is our 5th child. That feels pretty large to us.
Yep.
To others, 3, 1, 12. It's really an individual choice between you and God.
That's right.
And also we want to be very sensitive to those who want to have children and have not yet come to that place to be able to do that. And our hearts so go out to you. And this video is in no way intended to be hurtful or insensitive in any way.
Just want to speak from our perspective.
Yeah, just want to share our story.
Yeah.
Dave, before we get into the questions, I think the way it's going to go is like I'll read the question and then you can give your answer and then I can give an answer. And we'll see if they're the same answer. So they might not be.
We'll do our best.
We'll do our best. But would you like to kind of introduce where we're at? Like, you know, how long we've been married, how many kids we've got, that sort of thing. So,
I think, and Joe will correct me if I'm wrong, but we are just about to be 13 years married in October.
Years.
So not just about, but you know, in a little while. And we went out for 2 years before that.
3.
3 years.
3 years.
See, I told you, she would correct me.
Yep.
And then we've had 4 children up until this point, and we're about to have our 5th. Joseph is 10.
Almost. He's 9.
He's 9,
He's
and he'll
10
be
next
10. I'm doing terrible with
Joseph's
details.
10 in March next year.
Isaac is 7. I got that one right.
That's right.
Darius will be 6.
Very soon.
Soon, in August. And little Lillian is just about 4 years old.
Next week.
In July. Yeah.
Very soon.
And this baby will be born right around that time.
Maybe on her birthday. We'll see. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, David. So, the first question I'd like to ask is, Dave, why do we want a large family?
Why do we want a large family? That's a really good question. You know, honestly, if I can speak from my perspective, there's nothing more valuable in this life than having beautiful children to raise in the ways of the Lord for His glory. You know, I cannot compare any material possession or any position in life to how precious it is to be able to be trusted to bring up children, right? To be entrusted by God to bring up His creation. I feel like that there's nothing more valuable and more worthwhile to be able to do this as a father.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and absolutely, and I totally agree with that. From the mother perspective, what is it? Psalm 127 tells us that children are a heritage from the Lord.
Absolutely.
And that the fruit of the womb is a reward. And so, although having especially small children can be quite difficult at times, especially around bedtime, They are a heritage. They are
Yeah.
a reward from the Lord, and we see every single one of them as a blessing.
Yeah.
Some were planned, some were not, but all have been an incredible blessing from God. Also, I think we would both agree that we, as firm Christian believers, believe that God tells us to be fruitful and multiply. That's in Genesis 1. Verse 28, and it tells us to be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth. And that literally means to have dominion, to take control for the glory of God. And so we're not, just having babies because we don't have anything else to do. Although it's not bad.
One man said, actually, why do you have so many children? And he replied, he said, well, I'm very in love with my wife, basically. And look, I absolutely am. But in saying that, exactly what Joe's saying, it is a huge responsibility, yet priceless. I think there's nothing more.
And a godly responsibility.
Absolutely, godly responsibility that God gives us grace to be able to, I believe, do, because it's not an easy job.
And I think that He gives everybody that individual grace. Before I had even one child, I had no grace for a child. Oh my goodness, I worked in an after school daycare, and I was like, Lord help us, because we were pregnant. And then we had our first baby, and wow, that grace was there and that love was there. And then I couldn't imagine having a second one, and then we did, and so on. And the grace has been there every single time. And we're about to have baby 5. Thank you, Lord.
Just to add something,
Need your grace, Lord.
I think we both felt that initially, if God willed,
of course,
we would have had probably our mindset on probably 3. Because Joe came from 3, and I also have 2 brothers.
But you're jumping ahead, because that's a question for later on.
Sorry.
So, all right. Thank you, Dave. Question number 2 is, David, how do you afford a large family?
That's a really good question. Well, there's a few answers for this, and I'll start by saying that we honestly believe in the provision of God. We believe that we are His children, and we believe that the provision of God comes in many forms. So I have had to learn, right, how to receive from others. Right, initially when we were first married, Joe would tell you that I found it very difficult to allow generosity into my life. If my in-laws, if my parents wanted to bless us, I kind of felt like it was my responsibility to be able to provide for my family. I had to go out and work very hard, and I still believe in work ethic. And you can ask Joe, all my life I've worked.
He's the hardest worker.
I've worked very hard, and I'm very proud of the fact that I can work hard and be able to look after my family as best as I can. But ultimately, what we believe is that God is our provider. Woolworths is who I work for. They are not my provider. Regardless of how long I will work with Woolworths, or if my occupation changes to something different, I will always believe that God will provide for our needs. So in saying that, we've opened up our hearts to allow generosity into our hearts and into our lives. And I'm very blessed with having amazing parents on both sides.
We have a good supportive family
that really want to help us, and we've said, you know what, we receive. And I believe that if I'm able to receive in the long run, I hope that my children will be able to receive when I want to be that giver. To help them along their journey.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is, obviously, so David works when I'm not 37 weeks pregnant. I also have a job. I work just casually because we homeschool and everything else. But, of course, we love to work and provide from the Lord with our income. But at the same time, we're also very... I don't find it hard to accept, hand-me-downs.
Absolutely.
Or if a friend has kids that are older than mine and they've grown out of their clothes and they want to pass them on, I've always accepted it very gratefully. And I'm not ashamed of that. I don't see that as anything to be embarrassed about, or I just think, because for us, our children are our priority. So that means that we have had to be content. That's a huge word.
That's
content.
A huge word.
With not having everything else. Like, we do not drive the flashiest car.
No, we don't.
You've seen our car.
No, we
we
don't.
have always paid cash in hand.
Yeah.
Well, since having kids, we've paid cash in hand for all of our cars, but
Yeah.
our sound system is killer.
Oh,
We keep taking the same sound system.
I've had
and
the same
placing
subwoofer
it
and
in
amplifier.
every car.
I've transferred it to every
From
single car.
pre-children to after
Because
children.
as you know, we love music.
We love. I've got a clip. I'll insert it here.
Fantastic. Wait for it. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so that's a pretty sick sound system.
Sick sound system.
The kids love it too. We're all
Oh.
music lovers, so
Yeah.
we are going to have to turn it slightly down in the newborn stage.
Yep. Yeah.
But that's okay. We'll deal with that. So I think you wanted to talk a bit more
Yeah,
about contentment.
I want to talk about contentment just a little bit further. Like, to be honest with you, I am absolutely fine with not having the latest, greatest, if you know what I mean. So
I do know what
I
you mean.
don't need, you know, the most recent phone. I have an i5, okay? And this was actually given to me by my sister-in-law who upgraded her phone. And for me, this was a great blessing because the phone that I had before this, you would have laughed at. And I still get laughed at for having a phone like this. But to be honest with you, a long time ago, I set in my heart that, you know what, material possessions, what people think about myself and my wife and my family is not ultimately what really matters to me.
That's it.
And I feel like true riches, having the true riches is the fact that I can be with my children, with my wife, love the Lord with all our hearts, mind, soul, and strength, right? And raise them up in the ways of the Lord. That is true riches. If you can get that set in your mind that you don't need the latest and greatest, it actually doesn't cost as much to live.
To live, that's right. You can afford children.
Yeah.
You can. And, you know, okay, how do I say this? Because someone is probably going to get mad at this. But it's like this. One of the top reasons I hear from people who are waiting to have kids or don't want to have kids or don't want to have more kids.
Yeah.
And it's not because they've come to that decision between them and the Lord, which
Yeah.
is completely different. It's because they want to have a nice car.
Yeah.
Or they want to have the latest and greatest, like you said, in everything.
yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting to provide good things for your family. Absolutely nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that. But when that becomes a barrier between, like when you actually value material things over
Yeah.
human life,
Look, end of the day, it comes
I
down.
don't understand
It comes down to what you prioritize.
Yeah.
Okay. That end of the day, and I'm not criticizing those who believe that it is most important to be able to have the latest and greatest.
latest and greatest is, I would love to
personally,
have the latest and greatest.
you know,
one day we will have the latest and
Absolutely.
greatest. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. But I really
Not
believe
right
that,
now.
you know, the Bible does say, seek ye first the kingdom.
Absolutely.
And the kingdom meaning, you know, the godly heritage that God has given us to raise, that's seeking first the kingdom, raising them in the ways of the Lord, right? Instructing them to follow his commands.
Yeah.
That for me is what is a priority. So as far as the material possessions, hey, I like having nice fashion. I'll try, right, to be as cool as I possibly can, but not at the expense of being able to, you know, have children.
Absolutely. And when you think about it, you know, 15, 20 years from now,
Yeah.
God willing, when we are sitting around our Christmas tree with all our kids and
Yeah.
their spouses, and we've got grandkids, and we've got this huge heritage around us,
Yep.
are we really going to care about what phone we had or what car we drove back in our 30s? Or
Correct.
does it really matter if our kids shared rooms?
I will have, you know, just for safety,
It's a good car.
I get my car serviced
It's a good car.
regularly because I understand that, you know, if you want to have a good car, you need to service it. So I get all that.
Have a safe car.
And I will say, you know, to finish this point is basically that the whole generous part of it is, you know, we couldn't do this if we didn't have those around us who loved us so much and said, you know what, we want to help you, and we've just decided to receive. So Joe, I want to ask you a question.
Okay, my turn.
Did we always want a large family?
No. No, we didn't. For a couple of reasons. That's a really quick one for me to answer. So like Dave said, we kind of already thought, you know, when you're engaged and you start talking about your future, everything, well, you're from 3, we're from 3, maybe we'll have 3. Like, maybe we'll have 3. And then I had 1, and the pain of the labor that I went through, I, with tears in my eyes and in all seriousness, said to Dave, I can never do that again. Like, we're done. Sorry. we're done. For that reason, no. But the Lord had other plans, and
Yeah, he did.
I will say, in my own experience, every baby, it's not that it gets easier, but it's that it's not as scary, like every time you go into labor. So please, Lord, this is the biggest gap I've had having baby 5.
And I can't answer this question, by the way.
Well, that's why you're asking it to me. So, yeah, I was content with 1.
Yes.
Then I was content with 2. Then I was content with 3.
Yeah.
Then number 4 was totally, I mean, they were all God's will, but number 4 was really, really not in the plan, if that makes sense. Lily was a huge shock to us, but we now could not imagine life without her. And once we had her, I was like, you know what? I mean, not that. Okay.
God enlarges your heart.
He enlarges your heart. He gives you the grace.
It's his
He gives you the grace. And so we had a really big break for a few reasons. There was a lot of things I had to, with my health and that sort of thing, we had to work out and get fixed and all of that. And but I really did feel, and Dave felt, that there was room for 1 more. And so that is who will be showing up in the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
The other reason why I didn't want to have many kids, and this is in my previous past way of thinking, was I had some really confused and negative ways of thinking about the future. I was very fearful. I would look at the world around us, and if you look at the world around us right now, oh my goodness, coronavirus and rioting and wars and all sorts of things happening that are too big for me to even comprehend. They are worrying. And when you put your attention and your focus into that, of course you would be fearful. Of course you would be afraid for the future. And even though I had been a Christian my whole life, I was quite confused when I would read the Bible and read about futuristic things, and I was quite scared and terrified, and I actually got to the point where I felt guilty for even having the kids that I had, and I was like, Lord, please help us. But through his grace and through his mercy and through his guidance, through his word, and I'm gonna just look, we're not gonna get into this right now because that would be a whole nother video in itself, but I'm just gonna pop up some scriptures here. If you want, freeze, pause, look at them for yourself. They are awesome. But through his guidance, through his sovereignty, he has helped Dave and I. He's taken us on a huge journey, really getting to know his word, and we have such a hope for the future.
Yes, we do.
And we believe with all of our hearts that the Bible teaches us that the righteous will inherit the earth. And so when we have children, we believe we are raising generations. And you know this song, The Blessing That's Out, I just love it because it's true. It is God's promise to your children and to their children and to their children, to 1,000 generations. And so we are building the kingdom of God. That's how we feel. And yes, there are scary things happening. Yes, not everything is great
but
right now.
The most important part, and I know that, you know, like Joe said, we could do another video, is we base our understanding of future right upon biblical guidance. And from our perspective and from our understanding and from our growth in the Lord, we have realized that God has a future and a hope.
Absolutely.
And, you know, regardless of what happens around us, if we meditate and fill our minds with the stuff that is constantly happening, I'm not talking about avoiding it, because you can't avoid it.
No,
it's on Facebook, it's at work, it's everywhere you go. But you've got to constantly transform your mind through the renewing of your mind in the Word.
The Word of God.
And to understand, what does God say about the future? And if you can build your life upon that foundation, then you don't have to fear the future.
You don't have to be afraid.
Because you understand that, you know, every step is in the Lord.
That's right.
And He guides our steps, and He goes ahead of us, He goes before us, He goes behind us, we're in His hand.
Absolutely.
And His hand is upon us. So we are surrounded by the Lord.
And for us, we are very comfortable and confident in living in God's will, in His will. So first of all, we believe His promises for the future. But at the same time, we do know that bad things happen. And we know that bad things even happen to good people. But we trust in the will of God. We know that God loves our kids even more than we could ever love our kids.
That's right.
So we don't fear when it comes to that. And so if I just want to encourage any mums out there or any dads out there, if for whatever reason you've had a desire to have babies and to have kids, but fear is the reason you are holding back, That is not of the Lord. That is not what the Bible tells us to do. We are not to be living in a spirit of fear,
That's right.
but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. And you know what? Don't let fear hold you back. Have faith in God. Have faith in His Word. Have joy and hope for the future, because that is what He commands us in His Word.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
if Joe and I can encourage you in any of these areas, please reach out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Facebook,
Yep.
Instagram. I'll link everything below.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Davo. Last question. Do you want more kids? After this one, I mean. Do you want another one?
It's her fault. You know, do I want more kids? Oh my goodness. You know,
6? Do you want 6?
You know,
7?
Honestly, if I'm honest, right, you know, you do feel sometimes self-conscious, because I walked into World Gym, right, and I had a tribe behind me, and the receptionist, the two receptionists at the desk there, they literally stopped, and they go, "Are they all yours?" I go, "Yeah, they're mine," and it's a joy, and it's a privilege. Do I want more? Do you know what? All I'll say is stay tuned to this channel. No, what I will say is that, you know, I know that Joe and I, we're close to the Lord, and, you know, we try and make decisions based upon what we feel is, you know, a godly focus and purpose for our life, and that's a conversation. What about you, Joe?
Well,
Do you want to have more kids?
I would say this.
Yeah.
I do feel like we're probably done.
Yeah.
God willing, and always God willing, because it's in His hands. Yeah. I am not at the place where I could say never. Yeah. But I also love the thought of 5. I just think 5 kids is just awesome. Yeah. I can't really fathom 6 or 7. There's no grace for that right now. And also, you know, I am aware that I want to be the best mum I can be to the children that I have.
Absolutely.
And that's a really valid point. And so, you know, every child is precious. Every child is beautiful. The ones we already have are so amazing. Yeah. And I mean, Joseph, our oldest, is not 10 yet, but he will, like you thought, but he will be 10 next year. Yeah. You know, that's only 8 more years until he can... go do whatever he wants, and those are precious years. And so I think it's that real balance of deciding in our hearts what the Lord has put on our hearts, but at the same time having the wisdom to make the right choices for our children here today. So that's how I would answer that.
And I will just say, like what Joe said, God has given us grace with every child. Seriously, the thinking about how you're going to handle it all is sometimes you won't have the grace when you're thinking about it, because, you know, you get overwhelmed.
You'll go into a deep panic.
You get overwhelmed and you feel like, you know, how on earth, what could we do? We don't have enough room. What about the finance, all that kind of stuff. But if you believe that God has purposed in your heart, right, that, you know, you are to have children, trust Him. If He's put that in your heart, if God has put that in your heart that, you know, you are to have more children, trust Him that He will give you the provision and He'll give you the grace to be able to do what you have to do. And He'll also give you
I want to make sure that we make this very clear when we talk about God's provision, because He does provide all of our needs. Yeah. But He also commands us in His Word to be wise.
Absolutely.
And so David, I know this is going to be such a long video, but that's okay. We have a lot to say, and those who stick around to the end, good for you. But David is the best budgeter I know. We don't live in debt. We used to. We used to be in a lot of debt.
That's another video.
That's another story. But we are completely debt free. We don't owe money anywhere except Penrith Library. I have a few fines I need to pay back. But we are not in debt. We don't own a credit card, not because we're afraid of credit cards, but because we just don't want to find ourselves in a position of being in debt again. So obviously when it comes to a home loan or something like that, that is a little bit different, but we live responsibly. So when we say God's provision, it's also with the right mindset of budgeting,
good stewardship of your finances.
You know, providing for your children, because that is a godly principle,
Yeah.
being able to provide for them, to be able to feed them,
Absolutely.
to clothe them, to educate them. That's
Absolutely.
all important too. So that's everything that you need to take into consideration. These are the things that we take into consideration. And yeah, anyway, I feel like it's going to be like an hour-long video, but I'm so excited that we were
Awesome.
able to do that. And maybe the next time we see you, we might have little baby number 5.
That would be
Which
wonderful.
will be exciting. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. And we will see you next time on Strong Mind Soft Heart. Bye.
Catch ya.